Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got Una Kravets. Una, thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Well, I'm a little sick, but I'm here for you, Jason.
Very, very much appreciated. I am so excited to have you on the show. I have been trying to come up with a good excuse to invite you for forever, and I think I finally have one. But before we talk about what that is, let's talk a little bit about you. So for folks who are unfamiliar with you and your work, can you give us a bit of a background?
Yes, so I work on the Google Chrome team and I lead the UI and DevTools DevRel team. Basically, we get to be the connectors between the developer ecosystem of web developers that build interfaces on the web platform and the Chrome team and the engineers that are implementing APIs on the platform. So it's a really cool job. And I love to hear about the problems that people struggle with in terms of web development to try to hopefully solve for them and make the web platform a better place.
That's amazing. And so you work on, like, Google is such a big team, right? And so there's a lot of names that people recognize, like somebody in the chat is talking about Adi Osmani right now. Do you work on the same team as Adi, or is Adi in a different area?
Currently, Addy is in a little bit of a different area where he's focusing on a lot of framework work and how to help the ecosystem with also third party. And we work on more web platform core APIs.
Got it.
So it's sort of the same umbrella, but a little bit of a different angle.
Yeah, it's one of those things when Google does so many different things and so many amazing people work there. But so the core APIs are fascinating to me because if you would have asked me 10 years ago, what can you do on the browser? I think my response would have been something to the effect of a little bit, right? Because it's always been powerful, but it's never been enough when you looked at it in the 2012, 2014 lens. And I think that's one of the reasons that we saw this big rise of like jQuery and then onto things like React, where they were like polyfilling things that we felt as developers we needed that we couldn't do with the browser. But that's not true anymore. And this is why I was so excited to invite you onto the show, is because in 2023, the browser is actually like really capable. And we've seen a little bit of that on the show. We recently had Moxie on. We talked about view transitions. We've had Adam Argyle on, and we've talked about some of the stuff that you can do with like CSS open props and CSS variables. But there's so much to it. And you're right at the heart of this. And that's why I was so excited to invite you on to talk about this. Why? So let me start with kind of a background question. What changed or what has kind of fundamentally driven this huge investment into core APIs in the browsers? And like, why are they so good now versus 10 years ago?
I think it's a couple of things. I think a big piece of this is there was a 8-year long rewrite of at least in Chrome, the Chromium rendering engine. It was a project called Rendering NG. And that was happening while you were using Chrome. So it was actively kind of being worked on under the hood. And that took a lot of developer resources, engineering resources from the Chromium team to restructure. But it's allowed for a lot of these new APIs like containment and container queries to be built a lot more easily into the browser's rendering engine. So that's one piece of it. And during that time, a big investment from Chrome, at least, was this idea of Houdini could solve this gap, where we're going to allow for these low-level APIs for developers to be able to hook into and build on top of to create sort of CSS libraries. But we found that developers prefer higher-level APIs that are more direct, that they can use in CSS. They can get results from a little bit more succinctly or declaratively. So I think that it's a mix of engineering resources, an increase of awareness of developer needs around the UI community. And that's sort of been happening across browsers. So the fact that we have a team at Chrome that's looking out for front-end developers and specifically for building interfaces is a huge shift from what Chrome had been previously focusing on. And we're seeing Apple, they've hired Jen Simmons, so there's more support in that space and a lot of growth in the web standards community. And sort of now we have this really great blend of engineering resources, the developer voice in this space being heard, and we're seeing the positive outcomes of landing some of these APIs that are enabling a new future for web UI, which is so exciting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're seeing stuff that I would have never expected. Like we saw, and I don't know which ones you're planning on talking about, so I'm just going to run my mouth, and then you can direct after this. But I've seen things like there's now a native pop-up in HTML, which or a modal, I guess, and I had never expected to see that in the browser. And we're seeing things like, I used to use less and then later SAS because of things like CSS nesting. And when I was talking to you a week or two ago, you were like, oh yeah, nesting works in CSS. And I was like, what? So it feels like these things that we used to turn to frameworks and libraries for are starting to show up in a way that I've recently been building some sites, and I've just kind of challenged myself. I'm like, all right, well, before I reach for a framework, let's see if there's a browser for that or a browser API for that. And it's like surprising to me how often the answer is yes. So I guess maybe what we can start with is just sort of some highlights. Like, in your eyes, what do you find to be the most exciting new additions to the browser over the last few years?
So there's a couple like categories of things, because there is so much, honestly. Like, for the past few years, there's just been a sort of, I call it this golden era for web UI. Somebody else said that on Twitter, and I loved it, and I've been using that. But I guess we could start with like responsive design, like in the responsive UI space. I know you're going to have Miriam Suzanne on here to talk a little bit more about container queries, but that is a huge shift in how we think about building responsive UIs. Like, now, instead of just having the viewport and global page information to create styles, we can have truly component-based architectures that align with how we build with frameworks and align our styles to that. So we can now have these, cards and sidebars and footers and headers, and write all the logical styles inside of them, because we can look at their containers styling information, including size, including styles. And in the future, we're working on state queries right now. So states that they are in, which is work in progress prototype, but getting work done. And yeah, so that's a big one. There's also new selectors in that responsive space, like the has selector, which I've been using a lot lately, where you can check to see if a parent has a child in a specific state. You can apply styles to the parent or to any of its children based on that sort of subtree look down. And it essentially a parent selector, but it's a lot more than that. So that's a really exciting one, I think.
And I remember, like, that's something that I have Googled many, many times, is like, how do you style a parent selector based on, like, I've put this inside of a div. How do I make sure that div does something? And the answer for a long time was, you can't. So you just had to like add an extra class to it or something. And, that meant reaching for your backend framework or your front end framework. And now CSS just does it. And it's beautiful.
Yeah. You used to have to do it in JavaScript and be like, dot parent element, like keep going up the tree. But yeah, there are some limitations. You have to apply containment. So for example, with container queries, getting that block size, if you have auto content sizing, that element isn't going to work. So there are things to look out for in that space. But with has, that works really well to look for anything, especially for states. I used it a lot for that. And even you mentioned popover earlier, so you could check for if a parent has a popover that's open. I've been playing with, we're currently prototyping select list in the browser. So that's a stylable select menus. And that's something that I've been using to style the button inside of the select list based on if the select list is open, with the popover that's open. But there's a lot to talk about. I feel like I need to focus this a little bit.
No. I mean, I think this is the moment to kind of spread out, because there's just so much. I think, like, we're talking about the stylable select list. I feel like if we look back over the history of CSS and HTML, that's got to be a top 5 request from like.
Yes.
All the way back, because that has been a consistent pain point for just about every web developer, because every single one of us, whenever we build a site, we are 100% going to be putting some sort of form in it. Like, I've maybe built in my entire career less than 5 websites that didn't have some form of inputs on them, right? And a lot of those get complex enough that you need like a multi-select list or something like that. And so then you're like, okay, but I want to make it look like the style system, and then you can't. So you're building a custom one, and now you're into all this, like, you have accessibility problems and you have like keyboard problems, and it's like, oh my God, okay, maybe we just make it look native. and that
exactly.
And so the idea of being able to style these in a way that doesn't break accessibility, that doesn't break, keyboard navigation and all the things that I expect a form to do. Oh, what a dream, right? Like, these are the sorts of things
It's not even styling. It's also like if you wanted to put a flag next to a country name to help visually improve the recognition of the item that the user is looking for. Like, that you can't do right now.
Yeah.
Without completely rebuilding.
Right. Yeah. And as someone who has built a few custom select lists and still has the trauma to show for it, I'm very, very happy that someone else is doing that for me now.
Yeah. I feel you, and more components will come after, but it's hard to add HTML components. It's been a long process.
Well, yeah, and I think like this is something that I've always found really interesting is the sort of push and pull between what we know we want and what we're 100% sure we'll use forever. And that seems to be sort of the I think when it's done well, it's a very healthy sort of symbiosis between JavaScript frameworks and the browser, because in JavaScript, we can just build whatever we want and it can break and it can, it can be backwards incompatible, and we can just sort of iterate until we get to something that we love. But the browser doesn't break, right? Like, things that we built, I mean, I think we've broken 2 or 3 things ever in the browser. We took the blink tag out. Like, otherwise everything else just still works, right? And so implementing something
deprecations
wild
are hard.
Yeah, so if we go and implement like, oh, what does React do today? Well, React today doesn't do anything like what it did 10 years ago. So like, would that be healthy for the browser? And I think the answer is no. So we got to wait and see like which things really, really, really stick around. And then they become browser primitives. And like, I think jQuery is a great example. Query selector was basically an implementation of jQuery's general selector element, because we just knew, we were like, oh yeah, we need that forever. Like, that's such a good idea. Everybody's using it. That one doesn't go out of style. But there are a lot of other things that we love that maybe we don't use today. That, it would have been pretty wild to implement something that, was in Backbone that like we're not using anymore. Nobody even remembers what it was. But now it's in the browser forever.
A few years ago, there was a form controls refresh that's relatively recent, and it was a partnership across Microsoft and Google for Edge and Chromium browsers. And you couldn't misplace a single pixel in that redesign of the form controls of the native browser, because then it would shift and cause visual diff issues across sites. So it's really hard to make changes once you've added something to the browser and core browser APIs. And even that one, that's browser specific. Like, you couldn't change a single pixel.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a lot. Okay, so we talked about style and container queries. We talked about the has selector. We've talked about a couple future APIs coming in. What about some of the stuff that is like in HTML? I mean, I don't even, how far do we want to go back to, right? Because one of the things that I discovered over the last couple of years was the template tag, and like how good that is for sort of eliminating your need for a bunch of like custom JavaScript. And oh boy, I don't know. I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, oh my God, there's so much good stuff that's come out. What
template tag, that's like early.
It is early, but it was like such a like, it was a quiet victory for the platform. And that's actually something that I think is really interesting is we will see like, a post from you, a post from Adam Argyle, a post from, somebody who's like really, really in tune with CSS, who's showing like Jay Tompkins does all the future CSS stuff. And we see lots and lots of those types of like, here's an example of something. But then I also feel like there's so much that just happens under the surface, like these quiet wins. and then you have a specific problem and you Google and you go, oh my God, when did this get added to the browser?
Yeah, I think that it's easy to talk about new things because we're trying to, tell people about them, inform them, especially as things are landing. Now we're trying to do a better job of highlighting interop launches. So when things become stable across all modern browsers, so kind of highlighting when it lands in one browser and then when it lands across all browsers. And now there's a program called Baseline, which is focusing on a wider browser support and what is sort of safe to use based on researched browser support. So that's definitely also a concern when we talk about these new features, like getting people excited about them, but also many of them are still in prototype iteration phases.
Right.
That's always an asterisk too.
That's a good point. Well, so, and then the other thing
Like
too,
view transitions. View transitions is like an awesome API. It's not supported yet across all browsers. There's interest,
right.
so there's movement forward. But I'm excited for that to land across browser.
I thought view transitions did hit cross browser, or I guess it hit Firefox. It's not in Safari yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. I can't wait. I'm so thrilled about all these things. And like another one that came out that was like a quiet win was I didn't know about the form data API for a long time. And I had done all these like JavaScript gymnastics to grab the event out of the on submit event, and then I'd do all this stuff to it to get the form values out. And I was doing this on stream one day, and then Suze Hinton came on and she was like, did you know that you could do all of this with the form data API? And so I immediately go and look it up and got to delete like 200 lines of code. And I was just like, oh, where has this been all my life? Like what a magical API. And so okay, I'm kind of waxing nostalgic about things that have been out for a little while now. But for folks who haven't heard of that, like if you haven't heard of that form data API yet, go get on it right now. It's good. What else are you feeling like particularly excited about in this space?
So to that idea or that point of being able to reduce a lot of code that we currently have to write custom or use a library for. There is the anchor positioning API that's getting worked on. So that lets you talked about popover. That's the first step, being able to create pop-ups and move things around the top layer. The second one is then hooking those into an anchor. So if you had like a tooltip or a menu or anything that you'd want to connect it to. And then that lets you set fallback positions also. So you can, as you resize the page, tell the browser where to reposition your popover so you can have it sort of try different positions, which is great because we get to eliminate a lot of JavaScript that you have to do to resize observe, to element observe, to have all the keyboard hooks to escape your popover. All that's done now natively with these browser APIs. So that's a cool one. There's also scroll-driven animations that you can now play with in the browser that let you create animations based on a scroller and not just a timeline.
Oh.
So it's a scroll timeline, not a clock timeline.
So as you
that's another cool one.
As you scroll up and down, it scrubs back and forth on the animation.
Yes, exactly. And you can tell it when to start the range, when to stop it, when it enters.
See, and that stuff is so cool because that's like before you would have had to reach for GSAP. And like, I love GreenSock. Right. It is one of my favorite things in the world. But if I have one little animation, I always feel really guilty bringing in the entirety of GreenSock for like that one little thing. I'm like, that's like another 40 kilobytes of JavaScript that I just loaded for this one little thing. Like maybe I shouldn't do that animation. So knowing that, it's in the browser now for when I've got these small use cases. And I felt the same way when CSS animations, they just continue to get more powerful. And every time that I'm like, I want to do this animation. I don't want to bring in a big, heavy animation library. Oh, but wait, I can do it with CSS. Like, it's just this amazing moment of feeling like you get this surge of like, yes, I'm the best developer alive. And I think that a lot of that is, I think that's why I get so excited about this stuff is that every time the browser gives me a new tool, I have this new opportunity to do something that I thought was hard before. And then I do it and it's fun and it's easy. And I'm like, yes.
And I think a lot of these new APIs help you to separate your styling from your logic a lot more, because previously they required JavaScript to do a lot of these things that are really just style changes that aren't based on data. They're not based on logic of your application. So making these more declarative and accessible in your CSS just makes a lot of sense, and it helps you separate the application logic, which can stay in JavaScript. I'm not like anti-JavaScript. I'm all for JavaScript where it makes sense. But right now, or at least in the past, you had to do a lot of JavaScript for styling. And that kind of broke that mental model of separation of style and logic a lot of the time.
Got it. Yeah.
So
That's
hopefully this will improve that.
100%. Yeah. Okay, so I could just sit here and like talk about things that I love in the browser all day, but I think it would be way more fun to play with some of these and show how they work. So I'm going to switch us over into our pair programming mode, which will take me just a second as I move some windows around. And here,
what do you want to start with?
I don't
Start with
even
some
know.
of the responsive stuff. There's typography stuff too. There's like text wrap stuff. Oh, also, are you in Canary? Because a lot of the stuff I'm talking about might be experimental.
Let me get it open. All right, so we'll go. Here's Canary. So I'm going to start with, first and foremost, this episode, like every episode, is being live captioned. And that was not the window I wanted to end up on. So that live captioning is being done by White Coat Captioning. We've got Rachel on the call with us today. Thank you very much, Rachel, for being here. And hush you. That is being made possible through our sponsors. We've got Netlify and Vetsu Code both kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. And we are talking to Una, whose link is not, oh, it's up here. There it is. You can find Una on Twitter, and where else? Where else should people be looking for if they want to?
You can go to my website. It's una.im.
What a
I have
fantastically
blog posts
short.
that I write there, and that's me.
Whoa. What is happening? It's like copying the wrong things. Oh, I know why. Because I'm in Chrome and I'm using shortcuts for for a different browser. Okay, here we go. There it is. That's the thing. Okay. Great. So I'm in Canary. I've done the housekeeping and we've talked about the sponsors, and now I want to play with some new browser APIs. So what should I do first? Do you want to do these in CodePen, or should I open up like VS Code to get a little working site, or what do you think?
CodePen might be easy because you can just type up some HTML, some JavaScript as you want, or you can play around with your website, my website.
Let's see. I'm just going to get logged in here. Do I not have... Oh. There we go. All right. So I've got a brand new pen. And you were talking about typography stuff. Let's go with, let's call this like...
Yeah, let's make a paragraph or two, or a heading. So you have like a heading and a card, and give it a size, and you give it a responsive width. So if you resize, you could see it changing.
Okay, so you wanted to make it like a card?
Yeah, let's do.
Okay.
It's easy to show these with cards.
Okay, so I'm going to...
It's hard to see this screen. I'll try to...
Is it? Sorry. Let me make it a little bit bigger, and I'll collapse down the JavaScript, make this a little bit bigger, give it one more. All right, so we've got a card, and I'm just going to make the assumption that we'll probably end up doing more than one of these, so I'm going to make these H2s instead. We'll close that up, and then
you do like a subheader or like a description paragraph.
Okay, and for that we can do
lorem.
Do some lorem. I've already got this open, so I'm actually, hey, why don't we do this? We'll just play with the card of this thing. Then we can kind of pull some stuff in.
You know what? You could even play with it in DevTools on that page to make it faster if you wanted to see it live.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Let's do it. So I will...
All right. So
pull this over here, and now we're ready for some chaos.
So I actually think this might be more clear if you go to the home page because you have a bunch of cards there,
Okay.
right?
So yeah, I've got these
So
ones,
if
and
we
then I've
start
also
with,
got this listing here, depending on which one you want to.
yeah. So let's start with like the list of cards. I see they have a description there, the paragraph. So on that description, here's where you can start to see text wrap. And if you do text wrap as a property, if you add that to the description,
Okay.
you now have the option to do text wrap balance and text wrap pretty, which are two different algorithms that visually balance the text so that you don't have sort of these standalone blocks of, to say a word, text dash wrap.
Okay, so this is
Do you
text
see
wrap
it?
pretty. Let me make this a
So
little
text wrap
bigger.
pretty will text wrap balance basically tries to do more of like it looks at the entire heading and tries to balance that to be at 50%. So it's sort of like a more of a block of text. And text wrap pretty will look at the last few lines to make sure there's no sort of standalone characters. So it just kind of gives
Got
a
it.
better overall presentation of your typography.
Yeah, and this, I mean,
It's not,
this is with balance on, and you can see that all of these are, they're roughly, the same width as the rest of the lines with them. And if I uncheck it, okay, so this one, this is a single
it's
letter
called
thing,
a widow.
a widow. And so if I make this into pretty, it forces one word down so that we don't have a widow. And then if I make it
Yeah.
balance, it shortens up the lines to visually align them. That's cool. That's very cool.
This is one of those other things that you used to require JavaScript for to be able to apply these styles. Now the browser can do it for you. It's a lot more performant to do that. And it's just one of those nice progressive enhancements where even if this isn't supported cross browser yet, it's like a little addition and a little typography improvement for your users that have a browser that does support this feature.
Yeah, and it's great because, like what I've done in the past is completely ignore it because I'm not going to use JavaScript to parse every word on the page. That seems it's just not worth it to me, right? But this is great because this can just go in my reset.
Right. Yeah. So I feel like this one's really handy. I like text wrap pretty a little bit more because it just does the small thing that I want to do, which is not have those standalone words, and it only looks
Yeah,
at the end of
because
the
it is a
list.
little.
And this is best for
Sorry, I was going to say it is a little disconcerting that like when you put pretty in, it'll like shorten these lines up so much, or when you put balance in, I should say, because then you get this like kind
right.
of raggedy thing here, which I can see a lot of reasons why I
Yes.
would want that. But this is nice because it keeps my right side a little more even without creating any
Yeah,
widows.
and I think that balance is a little bit better for headings, like headlines that are maybe 2 lines of text or 3 lines of text, where pretty is better for some longer text that you want to still balance out.
Got it. So we can do it like this. Did I get that right? Oh, it needs to be this. Text wrap pretty. And so if we set the headings to pretty, then we get that extra wrap that avoids, something completely out of whack with like a single word. Yeah, it looks. I mean, that is such a nice little subtle but great improvement to the look of things.
Yes, this is why I think it's a nice progressive enhancement. It's like those small things that you can do. And it's like a way to have responsive typography without having to do much work. So that's pretty neat, I think.
Absolutely. There's a question about how this works behind the scenes. I don't know if you want to get into we can skip over that if like browser internals are not fun to talk about. But in case it is fun to talk about, there is a question.
There's a algorithm. The algorithm is actually not technically spec'd, so it's sort of browser dependent. I think that it's loosely based off of I don't know if it's based off of the text algorithm, but there is an algorithm that the engineers used, and uh, it makes it looks at the entire set for balance, and then for pretty, it looks at the last few lines. So that's why balance is maybe better for headings. Um, and there used to be a limitation of 4 lines for balance, where if it was more than 4 lines of text, it would ignore that line, but that's been extended. So for text wrap balance, you can't. I forgot what the limitation is now. But for pretty, there isn't one because it only looks at the last few lines of text.
Got it. Okay. And I just realized I meant to use balance on the headings and crossed them up in my brain. But yeah, I mean, this looks great.
It's just, yeah, I think it's like a nice little typography addition.
Well, cool. Okay. So two little, like a one-liner typography freebie. That's always a nice, like a nice little level up. Anything else you want to show that this is a good page to dig into?
I'm wondering if we can show has here. Do you have any cards that have like certain characteristics that others don't have?
No,
Would
but
there
we
be any
could
cards that
fake it.
have?
Like I can.
I'm just thinking, like, do you have maybe about, I don't know, the schedule where some people might have like a Twitter and other people don't? Like, you could just style things differently based on, you could even style it based on the number of children. That's a cool one to do.
Let's see. Do I have anything like that? I don't. Well, I have. So what I have is some of my blog posts don't have images, so we could play with that. We could check if it contains an image or something.
Yeah, that could be a good one. So, okay, I see your blog site now. So one thing you can do is you can check to see if the blog has an image, and if it doesn't, you can even do not has. So you could do like blog not has image, and then maybe make the text bigger, or maybe have it stand out in a different way, or you could even have some background images that you could send to populate in CSS if you want.
Okay. So.
But one thing you could do is just like a simple make the text bigger. That we could start with.
Okay. So let's try this. So we're going to do a not has image.
Yep.
And then we can set that to be, let's just make sure that I'm writing my immediately, this is incredible.
It's just
because
instant feedback.
how would I have done this in the past? And the answer is, I honestly don't know. I would have had some hack that like checked as I'm building the page to see if there's an image set, and if not, I got to add an extra class, and like just being able to do that, because and none of that stuff matters to the to the information on the page, right? Like the thing that I love about this is, like you said earlier, this lets my styles be styles, because the fact that this doesn't have an image is only stylistically important to me. Because I don't like that this is, sitting wide like this. I would prefer for it to look different. Not enough to go and make an image for it, obviously, but enough that I would like to, clean this up so it doesn't have this like super long line length that's kind of hard to read. So now that we've got that, we can do something like you had said, make the text bigger. So we can go ahead.
So you'd have to add that to the selector now. So with this selector, you're styling the entire parent of that post preview. But if you add a space H2, I'm assuming those are H2s.
I think they are. Let me double check.
Or titles.
Yes, they are H2s. Okay.
So then you could add the font size to that H2. So
where did
you might have to write a new selector. Oh, so you're using has.
Apparently I am. Good. Look at me go.
You're probably using it to create the grid. Because if you're setting up your grid where you have an image and some meta content, and then you have a grid item that doesn't have an image, it's still going to try to fit it into the first grid column. So this is really effective for making exactly what you have here, which is having it span the entire 2 grid columns instead of 1.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now that I'm looking at this, that was because I was having this weird issue where like this would get smashed over here. And so has
Right.
let me just, I was like, you know what, just ignore it if it doesn't have an image. And then it just kind of does its auto flow thing, but these get structured. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. Okay, so I did use this.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, so if I set this and I put the H2 and we do like a font size, I don't know, we'll say 2 rem. It blows out this one, but it kind of looks nice on these. So then I go in and I'll do the not has image. And there we go. Like this is really like, this is pleasant to work with.
It's so nice, right?
And then we've got the, so
It's
the
one of my
styles
favorite
right
APIs
there.
because it's very straightforward. You can read it very clearly, I think. So another cool thing I like to do with has is quantity queries, where you can check for the presence of a certain number of children. So say you had a guest that had like 5 links to their Twitter, their X, their Mastodon, their Blue Sky, their website, but another one just had 2. You could style it differently or have it either wrapped on another line. I don't know. You could do whatever you want, but quantity queries are another cool thing that you could do with has by checking if a parent has an nth child value, like nth child of n plus a certain value, and then you can style it that way.
Okay, so we can test that here because if it's got an image, it has 2 children. There's the image wrapper and the tech, like the display details wrapper, and this one only has 1 child. So we can set one up that says, let me just get rid of these. My delete key just popped off my keyboard. Okay, and we'll say has, or would it be so has, and then nth child 2?
And it'd be n plus 2, for example, if it's 2 or more items
Oh, got it.
or
Okay.
children.
And then we can
And then whatever
my
you want to
favorite.
style in there, whether you want the parent to be styled. Yeah.
Oh no.
Maybe it's n plus 1, depending on, well, do you have 2 or more for the one that has just the text?
Well, this one here has the
we started search?
text, and it's just the one
And-
div. Do I need to do like a direct selector? Like, does it need to be?
Let's try that, but I don't think so.
I'm doing something wrong. Let's go back to 2.
Yeah,
There
should
it
be
is.
2.
There it
Okay,
is.
the direct selector helped. It was looking for all the children.
Cool.
So another way to kind of get these, this is a great selection tool.
Yeah.
So those children could be anything. They could be links. It could be, you might want to have, if you have a bunch of links, have it go into 2 columns versus 1 column on a page. I used this for a credits example where if you had like a bunch of credits at the end of an article, it would be block. If it was just a few, and then if it was a bunch of them, it would go in line to sort of show them next to each other.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I've never really considered this style of selector before, but now that I know that that's there, I'm kind of playing back over a lot of situations where that would be super useful. Like one of the things that I've noticed is that I like a lot of times people will design the empty state and the complete state, but they don't just design the starting state where like you've got a new blog, but you only have 1 post on it so far. And so you end up with like this 1 blog post kind of stuck up in the top left. Is there really? Oh, there is, isn't there? Yes. Okay. So for that one, we probably got to go over here. And let's do another div class card. And we can say the card gets we'll give it like a display block and background of, give it like a light gray or a dark gray. How about that? That seems okay. Give it a little padding and
so you could see
maybe like
some space.
Yeah, like I guess we can wrap the whole thing in a.
You could just give it a margin bottom to separate them.
Oh, that
or margin
that
top.
that would make sense. Okay.
Or
Oh
that,
no.
yeah,
Oh
you
no.
can
I've
make it into
committed. I've
grid.
committed. This is the danger of me doing anything.
This
Is
is the more
like
proper way to do it.
I get so excited on stream about CSS that I just start doing like we'll get
Stuff.
hours in, and everybody's like, "Were you going to do the thing you actually set out to do?" And I'm like, "Yes." And we'll set up a gap of like one of these, and then for this, we can set a max width of like 300 pixels. Okay, how about that? So then we've got our empty one is here, and so you're saying I can do. Is it empty the same way that I would do has like
It's
a?
colon empty. Yes.
Oh, cool. Then you can just dump it. Like, get out of here. If you don't have any
Gone.
data, get off my lawn.
Exactly.
Well, and this is super helpful because like if I'm working in something like WordPress, I might get a plugin that spits out some empty paragraph tags, or if I'm using Markdown and somebody hits too many enters, we might get some empty things. And so it's nice to know that you could just say like, hey, if somebody put empty markup on, it's not their fault. It's probably whatever the build tool is. Let's just hide that stuff. And then, they have a workaround. They can put a non-breaking space in it or something if they need that empty element. But otherwise, it just goes away. I love that.
Yeah.
What a useful little tool.
And it's even if you had, say, like an inbox, and you might have a parent, which would be a container for inbox items, and that inbox is empty. You could, in theory, style it differently if it was empty. Like, or if you're starting a new account and you don't have any, I don't know, items or
Yeah.
things. I don't know, servers. Your cart is empty when you're shopping. Like, you could feasibly use this to style.
And that suits well with stuff that like, when you have your like Gmail, for example, when you finally archived that last message in your inbox and then it goes to just kind of a nice photo or like a little icon of I don't remember what Gmail does anymore, but like on, I use Superhuman, and when you put that last message in and your inbox goes empty, it just pulls up this like beautiful photo, right? And so you could just have that, your empty state is whatever the photo of the day is as a background image, and it just fills the whole page, right? Like there's just these nice little things that you can do that this makes very easy.
Yeah. That's hopefully the idea, making things a little bit easier.
Actually, we could implement that really fast. That would be fun. Let's do that. So I'm going to take this out. So we've got this empty card. So instead, what we're going to do is let's go to Unsplash, and we will grab. What's your favorite type of like inspiring photo? Do you like landscapes? Do you like cityscapes?
Let's do a beautiful landscape, maybe a cliffside, maybe a sunset vibe,
That's all right.
Okay.
I'm
we
into
can work
that.
with this.
Okay, so let's take the image address and then we'll come back over here and we'll say we want the background image to be this one. Okay, and then we'll do background size. Actually, why don't we do, or how's there's one that I remember where I can set
Are you
it to
trying to-
cover. Is it
Background size cover.
background size cover? I love this. This one makes me so happy because it goes full width instead of like
Yes.
squishing or leaving like unoccupied space. This is it's so good. It's so good.
And it centers it. I use this one a lot.
But look at this, y'all. Like,
And then if you're doing it for images, you could do object fit cover.
yeah. Oh, that
Foreground
one's
images,
so
like
good.
in your HTML.
Yeah. Have y'all seen that one before? Are you aware of object fit? Should we do a little? Maybe we do a little object fit thing because I love this so much.
Now we're going to add images to our cards.
Yes. Let's do images to the cards. And I will drop them up at the top. And we'll do it like, get one of those.
Same source.
And, okay.
Look at our beautiful cards.
And I guess we need to flex wrap this. Okay, so now we've got this nice looking. Let's take our. There we go. Okay, so now we've got this kind of grid of nice looking cards, and we want to add an image up at the top. So let's go over here and grab 2 different sizes of images, I think. So we can grab like this one.
It's a cool one.
And we'll put that up at the top here.
Do you want to do like a vertical one next?
Yeah, I think so. And then let's grab a vertical one, which I think I can just filter for these. And
ooh,
yeah,
that's
that looks
cool.
okay.
I'm a sunset girl. I'm big on sunsets.
Okay. So now we've got these 2 images that are absolutely destroying our layout. And so there's a handful of things that we could do. And what I would typically do is I would do like a card image, and I would say width 100%. And that would give me that sort of thing. But then as we can see here, this is blowing out in a weird way. So I don't love that. So what I want instead is I want these to be probably like, I don't know, maybe I want to be able to set the height to like 90 pixels. So I like the way that lays out, but this looks terrible. They're squishy. And so you said object fit will fix that?
Object fit cover will fix this. Or you could do contain if you want it to be contained within it, but then you'll see that little, with the vertical one, you'll probably see it. But what might be better, yeah, so it contains it. What might be better is maybe something like aspect ratio too, so you could have some aspect ratio that you're preserving, but keep it responsive. So if you're doing any kind of responsive layout, it'll kind of grow and shrink. So you could have the aspect ratio be like 4:3 or 3:2. I use aspect ratio a lot, and this is also very good for like reducing layout shift, because it'll save the space of that image if it has a set width and aspect ratio, and then you could use the object fit however you want within there.
Yeah. And this is, yeah, and we can see here, like there's no image set here, but it's reserved the space. So this wouldn't do that like pop thing.
Right.
Which is good because now when you run the Lighthouse tools, they ding you for that.
Yeah. It's one of those things that's actually really annoying as a user of the web. If I'm reading something and then the images load later, which happens, especially if they're bigger images, and then you have layout shift and then you lose your place.
Okay. So this looks really good. And then we can take, maybe we can take the image out of some of these cards just to see what happens.
Like that one that doesn't have an image.
Right. So that one doesn't have an image. And then we can grab one more of these while we're in here. It's a nice little misty morning.
Misty Cliff. I like it.
And there we go. So now we've got this nice looking layout, and we were able to do so much of that with like this empty state here. And look, this is why cover is so cool. This is the same card, like the same empty state, but it's in 2 different sizes because this one here doesn't have an image. This one does have an image. So these are different heights, and it still looks good. Like it still brings in that image in a way that is like visually satisfying. Love this. I love this feature so much.
Yeah. It's just how it's a needed feature of the web platform for sizing media.
Yeah, that's so good. And now that we've got the aspect ratio too, like if I go and mess around with this and I say it can be 400 pixels, it doesn't break our images. Well, it breaks these a little bit.
You can do one of my favorite techniques for responsive grid.
Ooh,
It's called the
yes,
RAM
please.
technique. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's basically what you do is you set up a grid and then you do repeat, and you have, say the size that you want it to be as the minimum size. So you do repeat, and you would auto fit, and then you would have min max that size, and then one FR to take up the rest. So yeah, it would be grid template columns, repeat, and then auto fit.
Oh, auto fit.
Next.
Auto fit.
Yeah, this is the A. Auto dash fit. And then comma, and then min max. And then inside of this, you'd have your baseline size. So say it's 200 pixels, and then comma 1 FR, so it could stretch to fill the space. And so now it should respect the gap too.
I've done something wrong. Repeat.
Let's see what this looks like when it's maybe smaller. So I don't know what's going on with the gap here. We can maybe debug that, but within the card, these cards are now shifting size based on their minimum maximum value.
I have a theory. I think I did the
Oh, it's box sizing.
Oh, that's most of it.
Well, that too, but
what did I do? That's strange. This is always my favorite problem, is like I always do something weird like this. Oh, I was forcing the width out here. That's why.
Oh, okay.
So now that I've
so now if you
hard-coded,
if you resize the viewport, you could see that your cards are sort of using that baseline of 200 pixels, and they're flowing onto the next line when they get smaller than that. So if you wanted it bigger, like 300 pixels, you could do that. And the aspect ratio of those images is getting retained, so the cover is continuing to like sort of shrink in there, while you're still seeing it centered, because the object position of this is centered in that space for both the foreground image and then the background image that you're using for your empty state.
Y'all,
so I use this one all the time.
These are the sorts of things that I just remember the pain that it used to take if you wanted to do a layout like this that was responsive, that could do these, sort of like min-max containers.
Without media queries.
No media. There's no media query in this. Like I used to have, let's see, I would have breakpoints. There was like a phone breakpoint. There was a landscape phone breakpoint. There was your iPad, your landscape iPad, your like small computer, your giant computer. So you'd end up with like 12 breakpoints throughout the CSS to make something work. And then there was still always somebody who would send you a screenshot of their like 16,000 pixel wide monitor and be like, your site kind of looks weird. And it's like, well, of course it does. You're on a widescreen. What do you think was going to happen? But the fact that this will just work, like no matter what size, no matter what browser, it's just, any browser that supports these, I suppose, which is all of them at this point, right?
Yeah. So all of them will support this for the grid template.
As long as you're not one of the poor unfortunate souls stuck on IE6 at work or something.
But this, like all of this combined, is really what I think of as the future of responsive design. Because as you mentioned, we couldn't do this before. And now we can separate this parent layout, so this macro layout for all these cards, from the micro layout where we can look at, does this card have an image? What is the actual size of this card? We can add container queries here, but I know that you're going to do that in a future episode soon, so we'll hold off. But all of this together is just like a whole new paradigm for responsive web design. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's so good. And like we can do stuff too, like in here where if we do like a card not has image, then we could do, like we could set up the content of this to be display block and have a width of 100% and an aspect ratio of 16:9, and then we could make it background color, I don't know, we'll go with like yellow. And so now you've got this sort of placeholder, and so we would have to do also a not empty here. But look at what we're able to do with these. It just works. Like that's incredible. And so we could go on and make that more interesting, or rotate through different colors or whatever it is. I actually might my wife Marissa just did this with her site, where she picked like color palette, and whenever her blogs didn't have images, they've got like it rotates through her color palette, so it looks really nice even though there aren't images on the blogs. Just little stuff that you can do like this that adds that extra layer of branding, and like in this case keeps these from being kind of squished with a lot of empty space. And yeah, it's just really nice looking.
I like this one. And you could also add like SVG if you had a little logo that you wanted to put there. You could have a set of backgrounds that you could rotate through for these states also. You could do that. Like if you had the first not empty one that doesn't have an image, and the second one, the third one.
Let's actually,
sort of like
I
the
want to
world
show
is your
that.
oyster.
I think that would be really fun to show, actually. Let's show how you would do a rotation. So I have deleted 2 of my images, and we want these to be interesting. So why don't we make these like more obvious that it's like a missing image?
Like an error state.
I was hoping that there would be like a little neon sign of a ghost that would work well, but why don't we, let's do something like this. These are all too tough.
For my blog, I don't do it this way. I just have a random image that I pull from, I think it's Unsplash, that has the category of computer as my placement for missing images.
I love that.
But it does pull something on the fly.
Okay. So we could set it to pull something on the fly. I'm gonna hard code, I think, because that's where I'm at right now.
Just to show this.
Yeah, just to show this. And so what I want is for these ones to have a background image depending on, we can do nesting,
Yep.
which is another wonderful feature. So if we do nth child, we'll go with like 2n plus 1, I think. And then that would let me set the background image to this one.
I think that you might have to do the before after the nth child.
Okay. Background size cover so that doesn't. Say that one more time.
I think that you might have to do the pseudo element before after the nth child there.
Oh, I got you. Okay. So here.
Yeah.
And then that would mean that I need to do.
But then you still need that to be. This might not work well with nest. Oh, there you go.
I think this will work. Let's try.
Yeah.
We're learning together today.
I'm here to learn with Jason.
I always get these wrong. It's.
Nth child.
What if I just try like even first?
Okay, so I think it's looking at the nth child of all of them, not the nth child of the ones that are empty. Yeah.
Nope, that's not going to work, is it?
What is the first selector?
Doesn't.
Okay, card not empty if it doesn't have an image. But is it looking at the nth of type of the card?
I think it's looking at the nth of type of the card. So
I think that there's actually a new nth child, nth of it was like inside of the selector. Hold on, I must find this. I believe that this is possible and it's new-ish. Complex nth selection, more control over nth child.
Ooh.
So you could do. I wonder if you could do 2 of. You can now do of inside of nth child.
Oh. Okay.
So I'm curious if it would be like 2 or like even of not has image. Something like that.
Did I get that syntax right?
I feel like this is now nested, so it's kind of funky. But let's try to
unnest it.
Let's unnest it and try to make it work.
Okay, so I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to put this. Oops.
Dot card.
what is happening? That is happening. And then I'm going to take this here and I'm melting my own brain with that selector.
Let's try dot card and then nth child even of the not has image. Are we missing? No, I think we have parentheses there.
Even, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Why isn't this working?
Should we simplify it and see if we can, like, maybe I'll take this part out and do like a background
Red or something.
red and see if we can just get, okay, so that's doing the targeting, but it is getting all of them.
Okay, maybe the selector here is wrong. Like even of maybe dot card not has image. Maybe it's missing that.
Oh, look, it's also getting these ones. So it's working, but we just have to make it more specific.
Yes. That's it.
Okay, we did it. All right. So now I can take my background image back in and we'll swap it out for this computer image again. Copy image address. And we'll set it to the before.
And I think you have to have background size cover if you want, but that works.
Okay, so I think I set the background size cover up here. So then we can take this and then we can set this one to be the even and we'll change out our image to this one.
Nice. Look at this on the fly.
Like, this is slick. That one, that's not the best image for that, is it?
You can change the background position there too.
Oh, good. Yeah, fair. Okay, let's do it. Background position, and I think with this one we want it to be like bottom.
Yeah. Or you could try like 50%.
Yeah, 50% sounds good.
Or 60%, 70%. I don't know. Just play around with it. That works.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Like, this is great. I mean, this stuff is really like, that's pretty magical.
It is cool that you can do that. You can have like a list of just background images, and accessibility wise, it's just for a visual placeholder. It doesn't have anything to do with the content. So it really is just decorative content anyway. So that works out.
I love it. Like, this is such cool stuff, and it gives us like unlimited opportunities here because, you know, you could, like you said, you could set up an SVG that's like your like, there is no image kind of placeholder thing. You can rotate through a set of your like default blog images. You could generate an image using something like Cloudinary that's got the text APIs, like so many cool things that you can do, and you can just throw that all right into here. Extremely, extremely cool stuff.
Something that I really want in the browser that we don't have yet is the ability to semantically pull data attributes and use those. So if you had like a data attribute that was an image URL, you could maybe use that in CSS, or a color. But we don't have that yet. Although you could use style queries to, it's an experimental API, so we also don't have it across all browsers yet. But with style queries, you could get the value of a custom property of its parent. So you could maybe set like a custom property value of like card theme to red, and then pull that in.
Yeah.
Or style based on that.
That's a really cool thing that you could do. Yeah, because you could put like categories, and then the placeholder image can be on the category, and like there's so many amazing things that are possible here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we've got about 20 minutes left. Is there anything that you definitely wanted to show off while we're in here?
Oh, there's so many things. Okay, I think one really cool thing is Popover and Anchor. Although Anchor is probably going to be changing, that API is going through a bit of a reconstruction right now. So I don't know how much we should dig into that. Um, Listbox is uh, select list with Listbox, something that I've been playing with recently because it's very, very early stages. I'm kind of testing out the edges of that API and seeing how we can build things with it. But I can also talk about things that are also landed and more usable. So really, it could be anything. We could talk about, I don't know. What do you want to get into?
Let's see. I mean, what I've loved is that we've been able to pull a lot of things in organically here. Can we do the scroll animation? Because I feel like that one is especially cool, and I want to show that.
Yeah, so that one, a great sample site is scroll-driven-animations.netlify. Well, I think it's just .style actually. .style. Scroll-driven-animations.style. And this is by Brahmas Van Dam, who you should have on your show, especially if you want to talk about scroll animations and view transitions and some of the interactive bits. He built this and also built a tool to help you visualize scroll-driven animations. Definitely follow Brahmas if you don't yet. He has a lot of great content and also is a part of our team. And
Oh,
I
I'm not logged in. That's why.
absolutely just like admire all the content that he's been putting out. He's been putting out he's been working on polyfills. He's been working on these tools and really good blog posts too. So definitely check out Brahmas as well.
And so
Next guest, maybe.
this here is CSS. This is not JavaScript.
It's all exactly. So it's declarative. It's written in CSS.
Unbelievable.
You could set up. It's so cool. Yeah. So you can also add these this site has a lot of examples, so you can click through any of them and see how they work. Maybe click on like one of the polar bear ones.
Yeah, the chat is fixing my links because I keep trying to use my Arc shortcuts and they're not working. Oh. Okay, so here's my polar bear. All right. Oh yeah.
So this is showing that bar.
The read completion bar, which a lot of people, myself included, have installed a JavaScript library to implement.
I remember a while ago I implemented this with CSS gradients. Where as you scroll, you had a fixed position element, and the gradient was go from like a color to transparent and at a specific line, and it would kind of, as you went down the page, fill because the gradient looked like this.
Oh, that's clever.
It's kind of a hack.
That's clever,
like a triangle on the page. Very, I wouldn't say very performant.
No, but I mean, it's beautiful because it's like, you were hacking it with CSS, I was hacking it with JavaScript, and now it just works. We don't have to think about it anymore. We can just turn these on and they happen. And I think that is so dang cool. You get a carousel position indicator. Is this
so
on a timer?
One, no, so this one, I don't know if that one's working or not, but I believe those have images within them.
They do, and I don't know where this one must not be.
The clicker is. Okay, maybe we'll try another one.
Oh, this is cool.
Yeah, so this is just a scroll, like a transition. So scrolling
Amazing.
And things it's just so cool, this visual effect.
And like the idea that something like this is done without any JavaScript is so just pleasant. Like it's just wonderful to know that these sorts of effects are on the table now.
This is just scrolling in opposite directions. Like that's what this one is,
but to do that in JavaScript,
really cool effect.
Yeah, it's like this whole it's a big old pain in the butt. And so I love this. And then let's see. This is an effect that I have tried to do
that one too.
a million times. And every time I do it, it feels a little funky because I'm always doing something weird. And it's always got some like JavaScript to like replace an element, move an element, do a thing. And then it like always has this moment here, always jumps. Mm-hmm. And this one does not do it.
Because it's connected to the scroller. And it makes sense. It makes sense that before we were able to animate things in CSS, based on a timer. Now we can attach it to a scroller, and you can attach it to a scroller within the page. You could attach it to the entire viewport of the page. And there's a lot, this API has a lot of complexity, and honestly, I've used it a little bit, but there's still pieces to it that I'm discovering.
It's so
So this one
cool.
kind of has a little effect at the top and bottom that it's like a little bit of a sticky effect, like a
Yeah,
gooey almost.
that's nice. It's good. Oh, and there's you.
This is a DevRel team. I think one of my favorites also is the card stack, the
This
stacking
one here.
cards one,
Okay.
because it shows this user experience where you kind of like in a visual experience. You're staying in it, and then once you've finished it, it scrolls away.
That's super cool. And like this is okay. This is one of the things that like I have built UIs like this where you do what feel like what at the time was definitely scroll jacking. You're building things in that take over what the scroller is doing, and your JavaScript is kind of jumping around, and it's so good on this like high performance browser that, you know, I've got my M1 Mac and I'm like cruising along and I'm like, wow, this site feels great. And then you open it on your phone and it's just like chug, 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 chug. And so knowing that this is kind of, it's built into the browser, I'm not layering a bunch of JavaScript and like taxing the GPU or on, you know, on a device that doesn't have GPU support or whatever, just, you know, absolutely grinding it to a halt. But you still get these really immersive experiences. The thing about
this API too is it works off the main thread. So it is more performant to apply animations this way. You're not worried about your other scripts, which again helps you separate style and logic and save your main thread for any application logic or things that you have to do with your users' sort of interactions.
So cool. A horizontal scroll section, another like common scroll jacking thing that is terrible if you try to do it in a way that is, you know, not ideal. And again, this is stuff that like, this is so easy to make inaccessible. And the fact that this is baked into the browser means that the behavior and I'm making an assumption here, you can confirm if I'm right. The behavior here, as far as the browser is concerned, is zero difference from if there was no like scroll anchor set. So from the standpoint of like a screen reader, you're just navigating the page. So this is style only. It's not behavior changing.
Yep.
So good. Like this is this to me is one of those things. It feels like a quiet change, but it's a game changer. Like how many kilobytes of JavaScript do we get to get rid of because this works now?
Mm-hmm. And you can have this be an entire page experience, like a lot of these examples, or something more subtle. So an example that I really like that Adam Argyle shared, and I can't find it, but basically it was just the bottom 15% of the viewport, and then things would just, I think the opacity would go from 0 to 1. So just like a little smooth animate in from the bottom of the viewport. So you could have like these subtle pieces. And on my site, I have it in one small section just to kind of test it out. It's a little progressive enhancement. But you could see how this can add just a little bit more dynamic. If you keep scrolling down, there's around the web.
Oh, there it is. Look at it go.
You're just animating in from the left and the opacity kind of coming in.
It's so
good.
you
could have it be more subtle too.
And I love, like, you know, somebody was asking if this is no JavaScript. So I'm going to disable JavaScript, and we're going to come back in and do these again with JavaScript disabled.
Ooh.
Right?
There is a JavaScript version too, so you can do it in JavaScript.
So right now, if I open the JavaScript version,
it's using position sticky. I think it's not doing the animations where it's getting smaller and stacking.
But like, look at this. This is, again, so JavaScript is off.
It's so cool to like, I haven't actually turned off JavaScript when playing with this stuff, but I love that you just show that here.
Like, it's just so, like, I can't even imagine, like, I've spent the time building these sorts of things as experiments, and I've never shipped them because there was always some edge case or weird behavior or some jank that I hated.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to I was like, if I'm going to ship this, it needs to feel perfect, and it never did. So I just wouldn't ship these kinds of experiences. And so now that this works, I'm like, my brain is buzzing with things that I'm like, I can bring that idea back. Like, I can do that thing that I wanted to do now because I don't have to fight with the fact that what I had built was all JavaScript and very inaccessible and all those other problems. Like, I'm just like, oh, I can just have this good idea, and the browser is going to do it in the right way. And, you know, obviously we still, as developers and designers, have to have taste. Like, we can't just go throw all of this at everything and expect it to be a good experience for people. But at least now we don't have to worry that, you know, our idea would be aesthetically pleasing and a usability nightmare.
Yeah.
Very, very cool stuff. All right, I'm going to turn JavaScript back on before I forget about that. And then later I'm like, why is the whole internet broken? Whoa, actual 3D models? All right.
Yeah, so this is kind of like
What?
playing an image. So you can play frames of an image, or that's how you kind of get this effect.
Oh my God, that's so cool. Okay, I actually built one of these. I saw a thing that got shared around, and so somewhere on my code pen is one of these that I built because I was like, I got to see how this works. Where are my most recent ones? Here. This is like all scrolling, and it's scrolling this one image. So look at so there's no JavaScript first and foremost, and then there's just this image tag. So how does this work? This feels like absolute magic. And so in the CSS, I figured out, first of all, steps. I didn't know that animations could have steps. This was a mind-blowing moment for me. And then it's a scroll thing. So you use the animation timeline of scroll. And then I basically just move this thing. Where's my scrolly? You move it to the end of its position, right? But because it's going in steps, it like exactly moves the image one frame at a time, which is, I'm assuming, what you were talking about with the shoes. So if you look at this image.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Right?
You sort of progress through the image.
It's incredible. Like, what an absolutely incredible. This is just so clever. It's one image. It's a couple lines of CSS, and you get an actual like framed animation. You could put anything you want in here. There's a giant truck pulling up behind my studio right now. I'm so sorry. You can see it. There it is.
Congratulations on the studio, by the way. That's so cool. That's funny. Yeah, I can totally see it.
So, this stuff just blows my mind.
This is one of the features that we are getting or now have in CSS to help us build things that are more visually interesting, that are better in terms of separation of style and logic, that help us to eliminate libraries that we used to rely on just to create some styling changes and to improve performance. So there are a lot of reasons for improving the web platform and adding these features. And these are common things that people build and sort of deal with. So I want people to play with this. I think that's the best way to kind of learn it and see where it's useful to you.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities that this unlocks that don't require you to fully learn like a complex animation library or to become a like JavaScript architect of performant, browser manipulation. You can just have an idea and use these APIs to put stuff together and play. Right? You can build some really incredible stuff with all this. So with that, I think we're roughly out of time. So I want to make sure that we've got a minute to do some shout outs to like, where should people go? Like, first of all, a lot of these APIs have been launched and if we follow you, if we follow Adam, if we follow Bramis, we see demos. Where should I go if I want to like have my finger on the pulse of what's shipping? Like, what's the right place to go to keep up on this?
So a couple places, web.dev is a great resource that focuses on stable APIs. So for us, when things go stable, we write about them on web.dev, and then you'll know that they're available across all modern browsers. So there's content around things that are new to the web platform, and that's things that are shipping across browsers. So CSS, JavaScript, all of those things. For more cutting edge features, you could follow our writing on developer.chrome.com. And these are things that are a little bit earlier or things that are landed in some browsers, maybe one or two, but not all of the browsers. We'll write about them there. And again, this is a variety of content. If you want, you can also follow us on Twitter if you're still on it. I also have a podcast with Adam called the CSS Podcast. I don't know what a good link for that is. Just look up the CSS Podcast on whatever podcast app you're using. But I also want to say that with great power comes great responsibility. So even though we talked about scroll animations and we talked about a lot of these features, make sure that you are thinking about your user and your user's preferences as you build. We also have a lot of hooks into user preferences. So maybe if they prefer reduced motion, you don't have all these crazy parallax effects. Prefers, color scheme is another thing. Make sure that you're thinking about what your user wants. Prefers contrast or reduced contrast. There's a lot of hooks that you now have to really customize your user experience, and also think about progressive enhancement with these features. So test across browsers, test across mobile browsers too, because those might have different support than the desktop browser that you're on, and check your browser matrix support. That's an important one. Don't be afraid to experiment, but just before you ship things to stable, think about your users and what that experience looks like for them.
Yeah, and for browser matrix support, Can I Use is where I usually typically go. Is there another place that you recommend for checking that?
MDN is also a good one if you're looking things up at the bottom of MDN. We use browser compat data for all the blog
Nope,
posts
that
on
wasn't it.
web.dev and developer.chrome.com. We have browser compatibility data for most of them, at least. We try to showcase that. And yeah, I guess just following along with the latest. I think it's always good to follow along early because you can explore things, but also give feedback about it. So we're always looking for feedback from the developer community. So if you have thoughts about naming or syntax or ergonomics, that's always great to get feedback on early. And then I guess the last one is if you want to follow me specifically, which I don't know why, but if you do, una.im has all of the speaking and blogging and podcast links and all that good stuff.
Yes. All right. So this is so much fun. I'm definitely going to reach out to Bramus about doing some more scroll animation stuff because what a time to be alive. It is such a like you said it earlier. It's a golden area for golden era for web dev, and it really does feel that way. Like we get so many new toys that are not complicated to use, expensive to implement. They don't feel fragile anymore. I feel like I spent a lot of time, when I was first learning to code, you'd have an idea and you'd put it in place and it would look so good on your browser, and then you'd open it on literally any other computer and it would have jank. There'd be something wrong. And I feel like that's been happening less and less. And the progressive enhancement story is getting better and better, where with a lot of this stuff, you just use it. And if it doesn't work, the browser continues being a browser and nobody cares. But if it's there, you get this little moment of delight. It's magical. Thank you so much for taking some time to teach us today. This is so useful. This is immediately going to influence the way that I build. Any parting words before we send these fine folks off into the rest of their days?
I just want to say thank you for listening and thank you for the support. And thank you, Jason, for everything that you do also for the web community. I appreciate it. I wear my funky 80s shirt. I thought you would like it
It's
for
great.
this episode. Yeah, I guess just, the web is a really cool place to build stuff. And I always love to see how people are exploring these new features in ways that we hadn't thought about before. And if you also have things that you need from the web platform, you could always reach out to anyone on our team. So if you want to reach out to me or Adam or Brahmas or even Jen from Apple, like we are here to hear you and to listen to you and to make sure that your voice is heard so that the platform can support you and the things that you need on it. So I guess that's all. Like we're available. That's what I want to say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Chat, we're going to go find somebody to raid, so stay tuned, and we will see you all next time.
Bye, y'all.